So it seems like this is the environment we're in right now, and there's a mismatch, a big mismatch in the whole world at this, and a lot of people don't see it.
Yeah.
And they don't see it because now it works. It's just in a decline.
Yeah.
Right? So it's not a big pain right now. You're not fat. You don't need to go to the gym right now, but you're getting worse.
Yes.
So what is the solution? What's this exponential organization? And just briefly, because a lot of people get the book and they will
Sure.
read it. So what do you think is the solution for?
So from a business perspective, right?
Yeah.
We're finding for the first time business models around abundance, as we talked about. And these new businesses, what we noticed was over the last 6-8 years, we're seeing a completely new breed of organization being built that we've never seen before. And there's lots of characteristics like leveraging community, like TED does, or leveraging other people's assets like Airbnb, or hiring staff on demand rather than having a workforce like Uber. But the core economic thesis is as follows. If you're running a business, you worry about demand and supply, right? And very specifically, what's the cost of demand and what's the cost of supply? And hopefully you're on the right side of that equation. Businesses forever have been optimized around, okay, I have products and services, and let me work out the optimized cost of demand and cost of supply. Then the internet came along and allowed us to drop the cost of demand generation exponentially, right? Online marketing, referral marketing, the viral loop. Every Silicon Valley company is aiming for the holy grail of a viral loop. And then your customer acquisition costs go to zero. Okay? And this is never before in history could you acquire customers at no cost. This is pretty amazing. And so that paradigm has been running for 10 years. And we see huge Googles and Facebooks and Yahoos coming out because they can acquire customers at no cost and they get the revenue. And so that's amazing. What's really even more magical, though, with these exponential organizations is there's one thing to have a cost of demand go down, but they figured out how to drop the cost of supply exponentially, right? You take Airbnb, the marginal cost of adding a room to their inventory is almost zero. Whereas if you're Hyatt, you have to build a whole hotel, right? Same with Uber, same with Waze.
And it's not a 10x difference.
And it's not. It's like, yeah, because now you take out the denominator. So as you take the denominator down, your market cap explodes. So people are wondering, why is Uber worth so much? Because you've taken out the marginal cost of supply. And so this is now crazy. And what happens is if you're a legacy business and you've got startups coming into your industry with almost zero marginal cost of supply, you're toast. That is an existential threat. Because you've got this massive, you're the dinosaur, you've got this massive existing infrastructure to deal with. And all of a sudden, these guys are coming in and acquiring customers at no cost and supply at no cost. This is crazy. So this totally changes the game. And so what we think will happen in the future, where we'll end up, is you'll have, where you still have scarcity, you'll have business models like the old style. But then we'll have a completely new breed of businesses that operate around abundance. And you'll have both juxtaposed within each other in the economy overall.
So for entrepreneurs out there that have a business, so small, medium, obviously the bigger you are, the harder it is or should be to make the transition towards being small, agile, and powered by information and so on. What do you think are a couple of things that people could focus on? Obviously, for example, you have 8 characteristics, 10 characteristics in your book.
10.
So ideas and scale.
Yeah.
You don't need all of them, which is important. I know that for me, like, oh, do I need all these things? Like, okay. But when you made the graph and showed that Google has 4 and Airbnb has 3 or 4, it's like, okay. So what do you think are 1 or 2 that are really transformational that you've seen being leveraged a lot in building great exponential organizations?
Yeah, so the biggest one, and every single EXO has one, is called the MTP, or the Massive Transformative Purpose. And this is seems now to be mandatory if you're driving your business for the future. Google organizes the world's information, or Uber is everybody's private driver. It's that tagline with a social purpose built in. Jim Collins kind of created this concept with the BHAG, the big, very audacious goal. And an MTP is like that plus a social purpose built in. Right? It's much easier then to attract a workforce and recruit talent and retain talent because you're purpose-driven. The younger generation is much more purpose-driven. Of course, once you hire them, you have to manage them, which is a whole other deal. But that's a separate podcast, probably managing millennials. But this MTP concept is a critical one. And then these externalities like staff on demand, community, and crowd. And then there's the internal mechanisms like the lean startup methodology, real-time dashboards, decentralized org structures, et cetera. And if you're a startup, you should be trying to do all of them. Okay? If you're
Why?
Because the more the better, because every single one of them adds to your information capability, allows you more flexibility,
And
agility.
the smaller you are, the better capacity you have of adding more.
Exactly.
Because there's no
You're
risk.
starting from scratch, right? It's like saying I'm going to build a company today and not use Amazon Web Services. Well, you're putting a ball and chain on your foot, having to manage your own service. Why would you do that, right? So the sequence we'd go if you're starting a company, first pick your MTP. What is the core thing that you wake up at 6 a.m. every morning to try and solve, if you could do that? Number two, build a community around that, or find a community around that.
Yeah.
Whether it's driving or cancer or whatever is your MTP. Step three, put a group of people together that share your passion. Step four is what is the idea? What is the breakthrough idea? Because we don't have a shortage of ideas. We have a shortage of coalesced teams around an MTP. The idea is easy. The breakthrough idea is easy. Make sure the idea is more than 10x better than the status quo. Because if it's 50% better, it's not enough to break through the market noise, right? So make sure it's 10x better. And then once you've gotten to that point, now you can apply lean startup methodologies, iterate, run lots of hypotheses, et cetera, and add in the rest of the attributes. So we have a sequence that we found that works well for how you start a company like this. Most notably recently is GitHub. So we have a diagnostic survey in the book that allows you to score and quantify how scalable, agile, flexible is your organization. GitHub, when we launched, we have the list of the top 100 that we ever found, and GitHub was number one. It was the most flexible, agile company. And let's note that in 10 years, they've built a company that has no assets, no workforce, no intellectual property, and Microsoft just bought them for $7.5 billion, okay? And I'm going to repeat this just for emphasis because, again, people can't register it. No assets, no workforce, no intellectual property, $7.5 billion, okay? So why the hell are you not building one of these? Why would you saddle yourself with dealing with all that stuff when you can create this much value in a new way and leverage it?
Yeah, and you gave examples in your book, I think in the beginning you called it the iridium moment.
Yes.
Yeah?
Yeah.
So what was that about? That was exact opposite.
That's the total opposite.
Yeah.
That's the traditional mindset. So it was Motorola launching Iridium satellites to try and deliver satellite coverage around the world. And they didn't notice that cell phones were dropping in price every kind of 50% a year. And the most famous was McKinsey's did a study in 1984 and told AT&T there will never be a market for more than 1 million mobile phones, right? And AT&T actually left the business. I mean, and then they had to buy back in. So in fact, by the year 2000, there were 100 million mobile phones, so they're off by like 99%. And one of my favorite little stories is we were talking about this anecdote at one of the courses at Singularity. So for 7 years, I ran all of our one-week programs. And so there's this guy in the audience, and he puts up his hand, and he goes, I co-authored that report. I was like, whoa. I thought, okay, maybe he's going to defend, rebut. He goes, no, you're totally right. Yeah, but what we missed was when you had the big briefcase with the handset, and they cost $3,000, there's no way you're going to sell 1 million of those. What we missed was they're shrinking in size 50% a year, and within a few years you had a clamshell, and of course you could sell a ton of those, right? And this is the heart of it. It's really hard to see where these things go. Ray Kurzweil's genius is he can ride out those waves and look out 10, 15, 20 years and say that's where we're going to end up, right? And it's very hard for most mere mortals to deal with that. David Friedstad, the CEO of Frost & Sullivan, summarized it really well. He said, when you have an exponential curve, if you miss one hop, you're off by 50%. So this is an incredibly difficult thing to spot. And almost all of the training at Singularity is how do you spot those doubling patterns, right? And it's a very visceral thing. You can't intellectually get it. You have to kind of, so what we do there is you do half a day on 3D printing, and then you go to the back and you use a 3D printer. We do half a day on robotics, and you go to the back and you build a robot. So you can implant the visceral aspects of it into the physicality of your body and really have it bind. Because otherwise it's incredibly difficult. The younger generation is kind of naturally adapt to this, right? If you're in university today, you have never known a world without Wikipedia, which is kind of a profound statement for anybody in the older world. And so there's no, you can't imagine the number of stories I have with an executive where he'll say something and the millennial next to him will go, I just Googled it, you're wrong. And the guy's like, shit.
Wow.
Which is great at one level, but we're super annoying.
Yeah. So all these changes are happening, and obviously there's people on both sides, and of course massive corporations and enterprises are built for that scarcity environment you were talking about, which means it's hard for them to comprehend doing things completely different. It's very hard.